Good morning, everyone. The Globe and Mail is reporting on June 28th, quote, the CBC's The National acknowledges missteps and looks to retool while pledging to keep its 4 hosts. Almost 2 years after Peter Mansbridge's departure led to a radical overhaul of The National, CBC executives acknowledged the show is still struggling to find its rhythm, with viewership down, now almost 24% in that time. But in an interview with the Globe and Mail, the head of CBC News said she believes the producers can turn things around with a boost from the fall election. Quote, we're pleased with some things about the state of The National. Are we pleased with the overall state of The National? I think the answer is no, said Jennifer Maguire, the general manager and editor-in-chief of CBC News. We still see it very much as a work in progress. The public broadcaster's flagship national newscast has attracted an average of 401,000 views, aged 2 years old plus, which isn't really how you measure TV. Just making sure everybody's aware of that. Back to the article. Nightly on the main CBC TV network over the 2018-19 television season, down sharply from the 525,000 average number of viewers who tuned in for Mansbridge's final season as news anchor. He signed off on Canada Day 2017, freeing executives to shake up the show's format for the first time in decades. But the interesting part is, here's 2 days later, June 30th, I think, or maybe June 29th, the day before. And here is the question. The question to the panel is, why is Maxime Bernier's People's Party polling so low? And I find it interesting because this is the National. This is the group of people that we were just talking about, the CBC main producer isn't quite happy with, right? And they're kind of just sniping. It's really interesting. The whole 2 minutes is just full of snipes with not a lot of substance, right? And what do I mean by that? Well, here's one of the hosts discussing how Maxime Bernier it looks good on paper but doesn't have a lot of substance. It's interesting about that because when you look at Justin Trudeau, he doesn't even look good on paper. And when you look at him up close, well, I mean, talk about flimsy. So I find it interesting that they spend 2 minutes on this, but, well, here we go. Let's watch.
One is the candidate himself, Maxime Bernier, is not a particularly impressive character. He looks good on paper, but when you actually get into the meat of the substance, he's not a particularly impressive person. Secondly, we're not America. We've not gone through the kinds of traumas that they've gone through.
Right, and so he makes that statement, and it's kind of a drive-by smear with absolutely no backup. No specifics. What are you talking about specifically? He looks good on paper. Okay, give us an example. But when you get up to the meat of it, not so good. Can you give us an example? What looks good on paper but doesn't bear out? I just find it interesting, and I think this is why people are walking away, right? Viewership's down 25%, guys. I don't know. Maybe it's wild speculation with nothing to back it up. Hey? I'm just saying. But people also, in the responses, seem not very happy with the direction of the reporting, which is another interesting thing to note. Moving on. This was an interesting thing as well, in the vein of Canadian media, and Twitter is being strange. In the vein of Canadian media reporting things in kind of a slanted way, there was an attack at Wonderland, and it's looking... Well, the York Regional Police is investigating a possible hate crime. City News is reporting, quote, a disturbing incident caught on camera at Canada's Wonderland where an 18-year-old woman in a hijab says she was attacked after getting into a verbal confrontation with another group. She says a man spit in her face and told her to go back to her country. Interesting, right? We're going to see the way City reports on this, and I'm going to show you one of the victims, I suppose, one of the people involved in this situation, what they have to say on Facebook as well. First, here's City TV News reports. Go.
Incident caught on camera at Wonderland is being called racially motivated. An 18-year-old woman in a hijab says she was attacked here at the park on Thursday after getting into a verbal confrontation with another group. She says a man spit in her face and told her to go back to her country. Part of the confrontation was captured on cell phone video. The 18-year-old says she was spit on. After she was spit on, 3 other women of the same family attacked her. She says her hijab was torn off and she was hit multiple times in the head. The 18-year-old was apparently on her grad trip and says police didn't handle the situation well at all, even claiming an officer rolled his eyes when she mentioned the word Islamophobia. Now, in a statement, York Regional Police say hate crime investigators have been engaged in the investigation of the alleged assault at Wonderland since the very beginning, alongside 4 district detectives. They add, "We take every allegation of hate seriously and can assure our community it is being investigated thoroughly." The National Council of Canadian Muslims also speaking out, calling the incident extremely troubling, saying, "We are now in contact with the complainant. Rest assured, we're not going to let anyone get away with racism or Islamophobia." And a spokesperson for Canada's Wonderland also saying police and Wonderland security responded quickly and appropriately to the incident, and they say that both parties were ejected from the park immediately. We'll have much more on this developing story.
So that's interesting, right? Very, very seems clear who the assailant is and the victim, etc. Here is the person, Brandy Lynn. She says, quote, "I was reluctant to post about this incident, but it's come to my attention that my version needs to be put out there. On Thursday, my family went to Wonderland and our day was turned into a nightmare after we had lunch outside the park. We were at the park with 5 children, ages 9, 5, 5, 4, and 1. Walking back into the park around 4 p.m., I was alone with 2 of my children. The rest of my family were already through the gates. A Somalian woman shoved my 4-year-old and pushed in front of us. I called the woman an asshole, and a group of Somalian women then started screaming and verbally attacking me and my children in the gates. I managed to get through and into the park only to look behind and have roughly 15 women corner me and my kids and start screaming, 'F you and F your kids.' At this point, my family, who was already through the gates, witnessed me struggling to get away from them and came to my aid. My boyfriend and others repeatedly told them to back away from me and the kids, and they refused. The 18-year-old female, who looked 30, wouldn't stop, and she spat in my boyfriend's face. Horrified, he spit back in hers. She then threw a drink on him and proceeded to punch him in the face. His mom jumped in to protect him, and then an altercation broke out between the 2 groups that was quickly separated by security. We were detained for nearly 3 hours, and York Regional Police investigated as well as Wonderland Security. This was not racially motivated, and it was not just one girl. We are not racist. I don't care what color, nationality, or religion you are. If you're going to shove my child and be ignorant, I'm going to call you an asshole. This story has been falsely broadcast on a few news sites and stations. They do not have all the facts, nor have they made any attempt to contact us to find out why this happened. An 18-year-old woman 3 times the size of me, in front of her friends, attempted to harass, bully, and intimidate a white mother alone with 2 kids, and is now calling us racist. Last I checked, asshole wasn't a racial slur. If anyone has questions, feel free to message me. Picture of myself and my youngest child before our day was turned into a nightmare." And there you go. Well, there you go. Sorry. Link is in the description. Check it out. I think that our media has a responsibility to at least report both sides of the story. And, well, I feel like they're failing, and failing in a specific way consistently. So that's interesting to note as well. 2 more stories today, and here is Catherine McKenna, who is stumbling over her words like Justin Trudeau, trying to explain the carbon tax. And it's only a 1 and 13-second long clip. We're going to listen to the whole thing because there's things that she misses here. Like she's saying, we just want to understand if Ontario is going to play ball with the carbon tax. And I mean, Ontario is taking their hard no to the carbon tax to the Supreme Court, Ms. McKenna. Like, you should know this. You are the climate minister. You should be aware of this. And yet you seem very lost all the time. So we're going to watch the whole 1 and 13 seconds. It seems longer than it is, so I apologize, but we're going to watch it all. It's important. Here we go.
And so I think we just want to understand, does the Ontario government support the national plan?
But obviously they don't. They say that they don't want a federal price on carbon or a carbon tax. They don't want the cap and trade system. So clearly we know what they're going to say in September. Does that mean that a federal carbon tax, Ontarians will then be, will have a federal carbon tax to deal with come January 2019?
Look, we've been clear that we're going to be working with Ontarians to tackle climate change.
Yes.
We know we need to also be making sure that we're supporting Ontarians, and all monies that we collect, the monies will go back into Ontarians and directly to individuals. And so, look, we want to be.
In what form, Minister? In what form? So how will, just so that Ontarians who are listening to this, so you will collect a tax, a federal carbon tax. How will that money go back to people in Ontario?
There's different options, but we can do it through rebate checks, for example. So people get checks, so they're made whole, and they also have an opportunity to save money if they reduce, on top of having money to support, the things that they want to spend money. They have an opportunity to buy
Right. Really clear.
to save
Really, really clear.
money.
That's it. So I find it, I mean, the Twitter video stuttering, it always stutters in the last second there. I don't know why that happens. It just, maybe it's my connection. I don't know. But I find her inability to say or to explain rationally or coherently what this tax does other than is a redistribution of wealth. You know, they're gonna have a choice to reduce their, and then they'll have more money and So I don't know. I've only seen this part of the clip. I don't know if she goes further and explains it further. So I apologize for not having more of the clip. I've tried this video 3 times this morning and it hasn't worked for various reasons. But that all said, it still isn't acceptable that the climate minister doesn't have the wherewithal to answer a question like, how does this work? She should, right? And not she should and stumble all over her words. And it's one thing to not be really clear with explaining something, but have a clear direction that you're going. Like, okay, hold on. I want to explain X, and these are the things you need to understand X, right? And that could be complicated and really a long explanation, right? But like, at least you'd be going somewhere. This had talking point layered over talking point layered over. She seems confused. And really, do you want to be spending the amount of money that we're talking about on a confused plan that doesn't do what it promises? I don't. Doesn't seem like a good idea to me. It's like, do you want to spend $25,000 on this new roof that may or may not get put on? Oh, wait a second. You're going to charge us $25,000 and you're not going to put the roof on? Well, it might get put on. And we need the roof. Yeah, I know I need a roof, but you're not going to put it on? Whoa. It's the same thing. I mean, if they don't understand how this thing works, we're just throwing money at them for no reason at all. They're not going to follow through. They can't follow through because there are no guidelines. And the 2030 Paris Agreement metrics, well, if you know anything about the Paris Agreement, the metrics aren't there. It's voluntary, pre-2005, and it used to be pre-1990, and it's... Anyway, back to, the next article. This is, have you seen this? This is the Canadian Forces dancing with Gurdeep Pandher. And here's Gurdeep Pandher tweeting, quote, "At Canadian Forces and at Gurdeep Pandher collaborated to create this Punjabi Bhangra dance video to celebrate diversity and inclusion in the Canadian Forces. Soldiers from different backgrounds make one force with one love for Canada and Canadians." I just think it's weird. I just think the whole thing was weird. I think they were trying to create a viral video that's, celebrating our diversity and stuff. But I mean, this isn't, it's a miss for me. And it just doesn't do anything to connect with day-to-day Canadians, right? In my opinion. So I don't know. I think this is a mess. It's a painful 1 minute and 43 seconds to watch, so I'm not going to force you to watch it. But again, just a big mess in my opinion. I think it's really strange to focus on this. I think it's strange to have, people in uniform doing this. I think it's a weird use of money. I think all of this is very, very... I think it caters to a specific kind of person who thinks the military is one thing. And I think that fundamentally a military should be there to protect the nation's interests, right? And not dance on videos with celebrating diversity and inclusion. If you want to do that, there are people whose job it is to celebrate diversity and inclusion and all of the things that they talk about while they're campaigning, and they're politicians, right? Having the military do this is just silly. And in the age of Instagram and Twitter and all of that other stuff, I think the focus on it and the, how people use it, people and governments, et cetera, use it for spreading their messages is, annoying, frustrating, and different than it's been in the past, I suppose. Anyway, the last piece of news this morning, CTV News is reporting yesterday, nearly 9 in 10 Canadians would fail the citizenship test poll. Most Canadians don't know their country as well as they may think, a new poll suggests. This survey, released in time for Canada Day, asked a random sample of 1,645 voters 10 questions from the study guide given to those looking to become Canadian citizens. The results weren't great. Only 12% of respondents got 8 or more correct answers, the threshold to pass the test. The average score was 5 out of 10. Quote, "I did have a feeling that Canadians wouldn't score that well, and unfortunately, that's in fact the case," Dr. Lauren Bizanoff, president of Forum Research, told CTV News Channel. These these are things that you either should have studied in school, or if you didn't grow up in Canada, taking a citizenship test, you should have learned about. British Columbians were most likely to pass the test with a 22% success rate. Respondents with a postgraduate degree were at 21%. Quebecers performed worst on the test with a 95% failure rate, and only 6% of seniors passed the test. In Quebec, that's sometimes sometimes less attention to non-Quebec issues being offset. Okay, I'm not going to read all through these. This one surprised me though. I got this one wrong on my little go through here. I was like, oh really? I didn't know that. So question 2 is, what is the name of the royal anthem of Canada? And apparently it's God Save the Queen, according to the answer here. 1/3 of respondents, 36%, correctly answered God Save the Queen. I was like, I'm pretty sure it's O Canada, and I was really ignorant about it. Indignant. And then I found out that I was like, oh, wrong. So anyway, give your answers in the comments. I got 8. That was one I got wrong. So interesting. Check out the People's Party of Canada.ca. Thanks for watching. And really, this Canada's Wonderland thing really bothers me. Bothers me more than the national people sniping away at Bernier, because Bernier at least has a chance to defend himself. Bernier has his platform and the ability to come on to talk shows, etc., and not set them straight, but at least there's not the insidious idea of being tied to a hate crime necessarily. I mean, not that they're not trying. Not that they're not trying to imply they're saying radicals and crazy people will vote for Bernier, right? Alt-right, they're saying he's courting the alt-right. But this is a whole different... This is attacking a person with no platform who maybe shouldn't have called somebody a name, but at the same time should not have been dragged through the mud in the news with implied Islamophobia as the charge, right? I think that's just wow. Like how different things are now from 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, right? Like wow. It's striking and concerning. Thanks for watching, everybody. I know I said this already, but check out the People's Party of Canada.ca and have a wonderful, wonderful day.